it was the pandemic, not our problem. The Federal Reserve say, yes, don't worry, give it to us.
Right.
And
It's a systemic risk, maybe not terminal in itself, but in together with all sorts of other things that are happening.
yeah,
It's a risk for banks as well.
yeah,
I think though COVID is not going to be. I mean, COVID was that kind of excuse for retail. Retail landlords held up for a decade, and then when COVID happened, a lot of them let go and just said, "Oh, it's COVID. I'm throwing in the towel." I think offices will need, and the next crisis, something will have to happen to kind of put them out of their misery.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know because I mean, maybe it's just time. Who knows? But there's a bigger trend at play here, which is that when we look at the structure of what's happening to humanity, right? One of the big pressures on cities is aging populations, and the structure of society is changing all across the Western world. Populations are shrinking, except the US, which is flat. But if you look at the forward-looking births, deaths, it's now zero.
yeah.
So it's over. Population growth is done until you start factoring in AI and robots, which are, you talked about, use the word abundance before. This is infinite scalability of humans. It's like, I use a formula, which is GDP growth is population growth plus productivity growth plus debt growth. It's basically trend
Yeah.
rate of GDP. We finished debt growth in 2008 because since then it's just been the servicing of old debts that has been the debt growth. And productivity and population growth have both been in decline because of aging populations. And we've actually stopped population growth via immigration because it's become difficult for politically to deal with for almost every country. Okay, fine. So we've got slow GDP growth. It makes servicing debts harder and all of that stuff. And then this nuclear bomb of AI turns up. And now suddenly, my guess within 5-7 years, we have infinite knowledge. Knowledge worker, the knowledge worker, the doctor, the lawyer, the accountant, even media people, even influencers, all of these people with the high end of this knowledge spectrum, they're all zeros.
Apart from us too, of course. But yeah.
Of course, because we're better looking, funnier, that kind of stuff. No, I've been
No,
training.
but it's true. Yeah.
I've been training my own Raoul bot. It's near perfect. It's not the video one yet. It's audio. But the video one should be by March. It's like it
Yeah,
shakes
it's
me up a
amazing.
little
I
bit.
use the audio. I use 11 Labs to narrate basically turn my articles into audio in my own strange voice and accent, and it works. My mom can't tell the difference, so it's yeah.
I mean, it's weird. But
Yeah.
I spend half the time when I'm in my car having conversations with ChatGPT 4
Yeah.
because it's
And by the way,
actually,
that's another aspect of that scalability, that a single person today can generate so much firepower. And if they hit a nerve, they basically have unlimited supply of whatever it is that they're trying to sell.
yeah,
So
because before the model was one to many. It's now one to one at infinite scale.
yeah.
So anyway, once you think of all of this, the structure of humanity changes. So I start thinking through this, and I've been speaking through a lot with a good friend, Geordie Visser. I don't know if you know Geordie from.
I don't.
He's great. And you start to get to the idea that, okay, well, if that's the case, then at some point GDP growth can grow exponentially because you've got infinite humans and infinite productivity, particularly if cost of energy comes down lower in this
Yeah, that's
revolution.
another aspect of it. Critical aspect.
Yeah, and everyone's working on that. So this whole equation starts changing. And then I start to look at it and think, well, what the hell is business? I can't get beyond 2030. So I think about the same way you started this process looking through the technological change and started to address cities. I'm now looking through the same kind of lens with the same mega trends and saying, I don't even know what business is anymore. So for example, we're seeing all these, I've got a list of tech people on Twitter, and a lot of this is AI, and a lot of them are these amazing startups. You and I would go, oh my God, that's incredible. And that tech gets supplanted by OpenAI or Llama or somebody else 6 weeks later, and that business is dead. And they've raised $10 million. And this is like the iteration process,
Yeah.
faster and faster, that I don't
And
even
we
know.
look at it, most other companies and business people on earth aren't even aware that this is happening or that it has anything to do with them. Yeah.
No. And I'm looking at this thinking, how is even capital going to work in an environment where capital creates something and gets destroyed so fast, where humans aren't the main productive outputs, and not one of us, neither you nor me, for example, knows what the hell business we're going to be in
So
7
I'll
years.
tell you how. Let's get radical.
Let's do it.
So one, I agree with your premise. I think to the extent that anyone is optimistic today, and I am, it has to be tech optimism, because we're stuck in a really deep hole because of monetary policy, other policy, whatever it is. The only way out of where we are is through incredible innovation that really changes the calculus.
Not going
of the
back
whole
to the
economy.
past, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
So, again, abundance of energy, abundance of intelligence, abundance of whatever we can throw at it. So
Agreed.
yes. Now, we are looking ahead. And as you said, we have no idea what's going to work. We have no idea how to put money to work responsibly. And one of the things that almost everything has in common in this nonlinear world that is governed by this kind of complex system dynamics is that initial actions have an inordinate effect on outcomes. For example, on social media, the fact that 100 people like a video really, really quickly dramatically changes the probability of that video to go viral. And once it triggers that cascade, the algorithm starts reinforcing it, other people start reinforcing it, you have a winner. So basically, by controlling and getting early feedback on things, you can kind of add a little more predictability and manageability to this world governed by algorithms and crowds. Now, how do you incentivize people early to give you feedback and to give you the type of feedback that you want? You set up a mechanism that provides incentives that is very similar to a pyramid scheme, basically. You tell people, if you're going to provide the input that I need right now, I'm going to share with you some of the outcome that we're getting later. And because digital technology now, and of course crypto, but also not necessarily crypto, so people don't get distracted, allows you now to share royalties of almost every action in the most granular fashion, and also to measure the outcome and the impact of every individual like or share or glance or facial reaction or whatever it is that you were reading out of people's heads and brains. Now you can start compensating them for that. Now, this is not just a way to market things, but all of these big models also depend on human feedback, both during their training process and later once they are deployed. They need people to constantly give feedback. Let's say if there's an abundance of content, how do you know what other people should watch? What certain types of people should be shown? Based on feedback from other people. So you need more and more people to basically just consume content, consume services, and provide feedback. And feedback could be something explicit like a like or a share, or it could just be them living their lives and you kind of track whatever it is that gets them going, which we're becoming really good at even before we start wearing all these weird things. Just by looking at your camera today, AI can know what's your blood pressure, your heart rate, whether you're excited, whether you're lying, all sorts of things, whether you slept well at night. So basically, we're moving, I think, towards an economy where more and more people will do stuff that just looks completely like leisure, but not because they're getting UBI, but because they're getting paid to just live their lives, and that has economic value that is being extracted. Now, if you think about it, it's much less extreme than it sounds, because to a farmer from 120 years ago, the way I live looks completely ridiculous. And the type of people that I pay, the dog walker, the lactation consultant, the whatever it is, all of these people didn't exist and no one thought they should exist. And even what I do every day looks completely useless. And like, what do I do every day? I read tweets and then I write stuff, but I'm producing economic value. And I think more and more people are going to do exactly that.
At least your mother tells you you're producing economic value.
No, she's not. She actually doesn't understand what I'm doing. But most other people do. But she doesn't understand that I make money somehow, and I bought a house, and I have a car, and yeah. So I think like more and more work will be indistinguishable from leisure, and if we're lucky, we'll find ways to compensate people for that.
Because I've been thinking through this too, and I got to a similar conclusion. I think there's a role of cryptocurrency because it's a payment mechanism. We're
Yeah, or
seeing
something like it. Again,
something
people
like it.
get
We
hung
can
up on
see.
crypto and
No,
it
it's not that.
confuses
It's a
them.
loyalty
Yeah.
system. It's a point system.